can be better than Drake May, who was got a silver medal in the Super Bowl.
I'm buying why an exec could look at the end of their college careers and project that. And when you look back at Drake May's progression, he had that really good second season, and then
it was weird.
Yeah, it was weird. So he had the really outstanding second season, and then he goes into his third season, and look at the number of touchdowns, interceptions. Interceptions only go up by 2, but look at this dramatic drop in touchdowns. And then every other category, yards, almost 700 yards. And then you flip that, and if you go with Mendoza, it's just the opposite, where he has a 3,000 yards, adds on 500 there. His completion percentage gets that much better. But the most dramatic thing is that
the 25 extra touchdowns.
Yeah, the touchdowns to interception ratio, that's a dramatic jump. And then he has all the accolades. They win the national championship. So if you're just looking at, second year to third year and that growth process, you could see why someone would potentially say, hey, this is the direction it's going. Now, I think a big part of this is, how well does he mesh with Kubiak? And the fortunate thing for Drake May is that he was able to get Josh McDaniels, and that changed everything pretty dramatically.
Yeah, I feel like I should throw this out. You just never know, obviously, with quarterbacks. I mean, Mahomes was the 10th pick of the draft.
Behind Trubisky.
Yeah, Josh Allen went to Wyoming. Lamar was the last pick of the first round. So he's not on their level, but Brock Purdy was freaking Mr. Irrelevant. So you just don't know. Yeah, Brady is the greatest example. But I think Drake May can be a top 5 quarterback. For several years. He can be in that top 5 group. I don't see that for Mendoza. I think if he's Jared Goff, I think that's kind of like a ceiling, which is you take Jared Goff or Kirk Cousins or somebody like that. So I think May is better. But like you, and what the scout was saying, in fairness, he was just saying, coming out into the draft, I like what I see from Mendoza. Because Drake was considered raw. He was not a project, but he's raw. We got to develop him right.
Dad played and his brothers played.
And then everybody was looking at why the drop-off. That was a big concern, is what changed between the second and the third season.
And Drake is set up. You mentioned McDaniels, if he gets A.J. Brown and all that stuff, good coaching, Vrabel. But we're seeing young guys kind of go up and down, C.J. Stroud, Jaden Daniels, so we'll still see.
So if he's simply saying he's purely viewing him as a prospect, meaning if Fernando Mendoza was in Drake May's class, I would take him before I took Drake May, and you're not evaluating anything Drake May's done in the pros, then fine. Then you know what I mean?
We're taking a little bit of a creative leap.
Right, and so but as far as the question we're asking, I would be utterly stunned. I do not think Drake May played well in the playoffs. I think there were some real, not flaws exposed, but I think it's here are some things that he didn't have to worry about in the regular season. He had to worry about in the playoffs that he needs to improve on moving forward. He is still, with a bullet, if the question was, hey, you can have any 5 players in the league to build a franchise around, draft them. He's going to be or any player in the league, he's going to be one of my first 5 picks. There's only...
Hubs, file that away.
Okay. Wow. This is something else. Man. All right. We're going to break this down for sure. Before that, just want to let everyone know I'll be live streaming the NFL Draft. Las Vegas Raiders fans, please show up to the live stream as we all witness the Raiders draft their franchise quarterback for the next 10+ years, someone who is going to dramatically transform this organization and lead them into an era of being a great team and a perennial contender year after year after year after year. So please, Raiders fans, you've been absolutely awesome showing up. You honestly have saved the offseason. Not only because of all the stories coming out about the Raiders, but also because you've all been showing up, watching the videos, commenting. So please don't forget to subscribe and keep watching, and like I said, check out the live stream today. Really excited for the draft, and we'll get to witness history. But yeah, okay. First off, he was clearly speaking strictly as a prospect alone, which makes sense. Drake May was not this can't-miss prospect. Nobody was talking about that. In fact, when he went to New England and then struggled that first year, nobody thought much of Drake May. And even at the beginning of last season, people weren't really on the Drake May bandwagon. And as someone who was very early on that bandwagon, when Drake May first got drafted, I said, this year you're not going to be good. You're going to be bad. And I said it's all about next next year. I was one of the earliest people to say Drake May needs to be considered an MVP candidate right now. People were like, what are you talking about? And I said, yes. And now when Nick just said top 5 players to start a franchise with, I said that ages ago. I don't know how early I said it. I made a whole video talking about it, saying, if we're factoring in age and money, you would take Drake May over Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. People were like, you're crazy. And now we're just casually throwing out those takes and everyone's nodding along like, yeah, for sure. And it's just like, okay, I'm glad we're all on the same page now apparently. When I said it, it was crazy. When they say it, it's like, oh, that's fine. So this is someone who obviously thinks incredibly highly of Drake May. Incredibly highly. But here's what's so funny, the reason I was laughing at the beginning is because it's just funny. This is why I love logic. This is how I approach sports talk. This is how I approach these conversations. I look for the logic. Views and opinions come and go. Facts even come and go. 1 minute you're top 5 in passing yards, next minute you're bottom 5. You're top 5 in passing yards, but bottom 10 in completion percentage. What does that mean, right? Both facts, but how do you make sense of it? I try my best. But logic is logic. I am going to make a shirt that says that. Logic is logic. Can't break logic. So let me get this straight, I can't wait to say this. It's too good. It's too great. I love it too much. I love logic, and I never thought I would. So going into last year, if we were saying, looking strictly as a prospect, if Drake May and Mendoza were in the same draft class, it totally makes sense that we'd take Mendoza over Drake May. Totally can buy that. Mendoza is simply a better prospect. But then we get to see Drake May actually in the NFL. We haven't seen Mendoza yet, obviously, and now Drake May has a great season, and we're like, I just can't see Mendoza doing that. I can't see Mendoza being better than Drake May. But he was a better prospect. You just admitted that if they were in the same draft class, you would say Mendoza is going to be a better quarterback than Drake May. But now that we have actually seen Drake May in the NFL, it's impossible for us to imagine Mendoza being a better quarterback. That logic doesn't actually make any sense. Because also, with that being said, then you would have taken Mendoza over Drake May. But if you thought Drake May was always going to be the better quarterback, then you would not take Mendoza, you would take Drake May. And here's where it gets really funny. 1 minute, Caleb Williams is going to be literally the greatest NFL quarterback we've ever seen, surpass Mahomes, etc. Then he a bust. Then he's great, then he's a bust, then he's great. I don't even know where we've landed with Caleb right now, honestly. We all watched that video of him throwing into a net, and people were like, it's over. They paid the backup quarterback $10 million. I don't know, this isn't going to work. And now we're like, Caleb Williams might be a top 5 quarterback right now. So it's just like, what? Where are we at? And then, I've got news for you, there were years when Jared Goff was absolutely a top 5 quarterback. This is where the whole who's the best quarterback in the NFL and who's top 5 conversation gets messy. Are we saying who is it in their soul? Like, do you have it in your soul that you're a top 5 quarterback? Or is it, did you have a top 5 season? Especially when you're a legitimately established quarterback like Jared Goff. It's a little different when you haven't really put out many years, like, there were times when Baker or Dak had top 5 stats depending on which stat we're looking at, right? But yet, we'll see a season where say Dak Prescott maybe has a higher passer rating and more passing yards than Patrick Mahomes, but no one is saying Dak is better than Patrick Mahomes, right? No one's going to say that. So then again, how do we define this coveted he's a top 5 quarterback? How do we define that? Especially if you're a Jared Goff now, been in the league for years, had multiple seasons where he was top in paw. Sing yards, top in completion percentage, top in passer rating, top in touchdown to interception ratio, but he's not a top 5 quarterback. And it's like, okay, why though? Well, Lamar Jackson can scramble and dance. Okay. Joe Burrow, he throws the ball well, also has great passing stats. Okay, I agree. Patrick Mahomes, he won Super Bowls. Yeah, but that was in the past a little bit. Josh Allen, he's, okay. And then where are we at? Also, if we have this coveted 4, especially Lamar, Josh, Mahomes, Allen, I'm missing one. Lamar, Burrow, Josh, whatever, the 4. I don't know why I can't say them in a row. Let's just say they're in their own little category. Fine, whatever. Then no one can ever surpass them. No one can ever be part of that party. They're just their own little crew. Fine. Whatever. Also, only one of them has a Super Bowl, because it's a team sport, mind you. So let's just set that aside. But then it's like, okay, we're so confident that some of these other up-and-coming quarterbacks, whether it's Caleb or Drake, are allowed to join that party, but the Mendozas of the NFL can't. It just doesn't make sense. Not to mention, again, if those 4 are in their own little universe, then it doesn't matter. Then the whole I don't know if he could ever be top 5, it doesn't matter because they're their own thing. So then what's the next best thing? And then we're not putting Stafford up there, and Stafford won a Super Bowl, got to an NFC championship. Stafford's elite. I think Stafford's awesome. He's unbelievable, but he's not in that category. Okay. Jalen Hurts, multiple Super Bowl appearances. Brock Purdy, Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo, Super Bowl. Russell Wilson, when he won a Super Bowl, was he considered top? I forget exactly who was considered where. Obviously we had Manning, Brady, I don't even remember. But Wilson was considered a top quarterback, but was he looked at through the same lens as Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes? He was considered great, but not enough. Not enough. So it just becomes a silly conversation. It really does. I've said this before and I stand by it, we often have about 15 quarterbacks who are top 10. We just do. That's the reality of the situation to me. I always put quarterbacks in tiers, not this numerical 1-2-3-4-5. We used to do this, we don't do it as much anymore, where people say, well, Patrick Mahomes is on a tier of himself. And it's like, no, he's not. That's not how that works. Because then we'll say, why is he on a tier of himself? These other quarterbacks have better stats and are playing better. But he won. Okay, but here's another quarterback who won, and you're not putting him on the level of Josh Allen or Lamar. So it can't be just winning. So what is it? Well, it's stats and winning. Okay, but this quarterback has great stats and winning, they just didn't win the Super Bowl. We have to win the Super Bowl. And then round and round we go. Brock Purdy had amazing stats, got to a Super Bowl, and was not considered a top 5 quarterback. So the conversation just gets lost and becomes nonsense. Honestly, it really does. And then on one side, we rip the Patriots, easiest schedule ever, and then we want to say, yeah, but Drake May is clearly elite and a top 5 quarterback moving forward. And it's like, but I thought it was a really easy schedule. If it's an easy schedule and you're beating bad teams, then your quarterback's numbers are going to be inflated. So we can't even figure out what rules and what conclusions we want to draw from a previous season to allow us to draw further conclusions moving forward. So the whole thing becomes kind of silly and absurd. We can admit that Mendoza is a better prospect than Drake May, but because we've seen Drake May for 2 years in the NFL, now Mendoza can't be better than Drake May. Again, that logic is so fundamentally broken. It does not make sense. And if people say, yeah, but Drake May always had more potential, no, you wouldn't say he's a better prospect. So the whole thing is absurd. Jaden Daniels' rookie year, people were like, wow, the Bears made a mistake. The Bears should have drafted Jaden. Then when Drake May had his year, they were like, oh my god, the Bears made such a mistake, they didn't even have Drake May for a meeting. That's why the GM should get fired. He had no interest. And we're always just messing things around. They laughed at Bo and I. X getting drafted. Every single one of them laughed. Bo Nix led the Broncos to the playoffs for the first time in like 10 years, got them to the AFC Championship game. Then they said, well, if any team could win with a backup quarterback, it's the Broncos. I saw them with a backup quarterback, didn't look very good. Didn't look very good at all, going up against Drake May. So the conversation itself is fundamentally flawed and ridiculously absurd. Ridiculously absurd. And at the end of the day, the vast majority, the absolute vast majority, outside of maybe 1 or 2 or 3 quarterbacks at any given moment, whether you're better than Drake May or win more or whatever, it's because of the team. It's because of coaching. It's because of all these other factors. And even those quarterbacks who can transcend that a little bit, in order for them to truly achieve what they're trying to do, like win Super Bowls, they also need the team. They also need a team. Again, Patrick Mahomes, if he got drafted to the Carolina Panthers, does not have 3 Super Bowls. He just does not. I think that should be very obvious. I think that should be very clear. So again, we know it can't just be who wins. So then we go back to, is it in their soul? I just believe in the soul. Even though Jalen Hurts has gone to 2 Super Bowls, no one is saying he's better than Lamar Jackson. And they'll say, yeah, but team. And it's like, okay, yeah, exactly, team matters. But it doesn't matter for Mahomes. And it doesn't matter for Drake May. But it will matter for Mendoza. Round and round we go. So then again, that's when I ask, okay, well, how do we know who's better? Why do you put Jared Goff on a lower level when Jared Goff is balling? Let's just even look at last season, which I already have up here because I pretty much always have this up. Jared Goff, 68% completion, 4,564 yards, 34 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And it's funny because everyone's like, Matthew Stafford is the MVP. And Stafford had Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Blake Corum, Karen Williams. He had the most successful run game in the NFL without a doubt, went through all the advanced analytics. Sean McVay, etc. Jared Goff did this without Ben Johnson. He did this without Sean McVay. So is he not a top quarterback? Because he certainly put up top stats. His defense wasn't good enough. But Jared Goff was awesome, 105.5 passer rating. Matthew Stafford, 109.2 passer rating, he's the MVP. Jared Goff isn't, not even remotely in the conversation. And Goff was pressured over 20 times more than Stafford. Had to get rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds, Stafford 2.7 seconds. Jared Goff did not have a great offensive line. Matthew Stafford had, I think it was, the best offensive line in the NFL last season. And Jared Goff has been doing this for years now. Last year, 72.4% completion, 4,600 yards, was the number 1 seed. So you can't say, oh, it depends on your team's success. Number 1 seed. 37 touchdowns, passer rating of 111.8, he wasn't considered in the MVP conversation. So again, does that magical conversation of who's better than who, are you top this, top that, what does that actually mean? What does that actually mean at the end of the day? Honestly, it's pretty meaningless. It's conversations that I still have and can still enjoy and unpack. But not when we're trying to put a limit on a quarterback who hasn't even played a down in the NFL. It's a little more interesting if we're having this conversation years into someone's career. Can Caleb ever be as good as Patrick Mahomes? Or, who will be better, Jaden or Bo Nix, or Bo Nix and Drake May? Those conversations make a lot more sense to me. That's totally fair game because we do it with Josh Allen versus Lamar and Lamar versus Mahomes. Totally fair game. I enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. You get lost in all the hypotheticals, team success versus individual success, stats, what this quarterback had to do in his playoff game versus that quarterback. I make those videos all the time, and I really do enjoy those conversations, especially in the off-season. But this conversation right now, the way we're having it, just doesn't really make sense. Like at all. In fact, what has Drake May shown that Jared Goff hasn't done? Jared Goff even got to a Super Bowl. Even technically last year, 72% completion, 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Jared Goff had more touchdowns, more same yards, same number of interceptions. No. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Mendoza? Could he be better than Drake May? A ridiculous idea to think that Mendoza, the #1 overall pick, undefeated national champion, Heisman winner, 6'5" monster quarterback with an awesome head on his shoulders, high IQ, hyper-focused, great leader, going to a team now that is building a great roster and a great coaching staff, even having Tom Brady there. Is it crazy to think that he could actually be a great quarterback and ultra-successful in the NFL? That he could be a top quarterback in the NFL? I know. Ooh, it's a crazy idea. So crazy it might just work. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you as part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing that. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.